What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2024 schedule preview and projected record series. BYU is up next. Let's look back at their schedule from last season. Of course, first year in the Big 12. It didn't go great for them. I guess it could have been worse, but yeah, 5-7, losing to, it's crazy that they beat Arkansas and didn't make a bowl game, because I don't think many people expected them to go on the road and win that game. And they started 3-0, started 4-1, and then after that Texas Tech game, just didn't win another game. It was a pretty tough schedule. Kansas, one of the better teams in the Big 12. Texas, of course, the best team in the Big 12. West Virginia, one of the better teams. Iowa State was pretty solid. Oklahoma State, two of the better teams. So they had a pretty tough draw in the Big 12. And, I give them credit, actually, for going 5-7 with this schedule. You look at the 2024 schedule, and it's going to be maybe a little bit easier. We'll start with the non-conference, Southern Illinois at SMU and at Wyoming. Can they go on the road and beat SMU like they went on the road to beat Arkansas last year? I think it's going to be tough. I actually think SMU is going to be a pretty good team this year. So that's going to be a tough one. And don't sleep on Wyoming. They've beaten plenty of Power 5 opponents in the past. So that's not going to be an easy win. The rest of the home schedule in the Big 12, Kansas State, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Houston. You got some really tough opponents in there, but home field advantage obviously makes a difference in college football. You look at the road schedule in the Big 12, it's Baylor, UCF, Utah, and Arizona State. That's going to be a tough stretch right there in the Big 12, especially with Utah. But maybe Baylor, UCF, Arizona State, maybe some of those games, maybe one or two of them they can win. And that would obviously go a long way towards making this a successful season. So they'll start out with Southern Illinois on the 31st, and they play on the road at SMU on September 6th. That's a Friday night game, I believe. Then you have Wyoming on the road on the 14th, so back-to-back road games. Then they'll start Big 12 conference play with Kansas State on September 21st, and then on the road at Baylor on the 28th. They'll get their first bye week after that. Then they'll play Arizona at home on October 12th. Then it'll be a quick turnaround to Oklahoma State on a Friday night. That's going to be a big game there. Then they go on the road to play UCF on the 26th. Then they get a bye week before playing Utah. So I think that's a perfect time for a bye week in between two road games before your big rivalry game with Utah. They play them on the 9th. Then it's back home on the 16th against Kansas. Then they'll play Arizona State on the road on the 23rd and finish things out with Houston on November 30th. So you look at the schedule here. Again, you got back-to-back road games, the non-conference with SMU and Wyoming. UCF, Utah, back-to-back road games, but there is a bye week in between there. They are going to play several of the top teams in the Big 12. They're going to play Utah. They're going to play Oklahoma State. They're going to play Kansas and Kansas State and Arizona. I mean, they play almost every top team in the Big 12, maybe outside of West Virginia. So this is going to be a tough schedule again for BYU in 2024. Let's get to the projections here. These are the projections from last season. Of course, going 5-7. Projection was 6-6. Our prediction, I actually picked them to go 4-8. I think if you go back to that Arkansas game, if they lose that game, they would have been 4-8. So that was the big surprise. I thought I actually had them at 6-6. The over/under, you could have found that at 4.5, maybe up to 5.5 in that range. So let's go to the projections for this year. Again, this is the scale that we use. We've got one easy win, Southern Illinois, an FCS team. They should be able to take care of business there. Really no problems. I've got Wyoming in the purple. I think BYU will be favored by about a touchdown in this game, but definitely not an easy win, not one you can count as a guaranteed win. And again, that's going to be tough, but I think BYU should be the favorite in that game. And then you've got some games where I think they'll be about a touchdown underdog. So flip that around. You got SMU, Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Utah. And really, so, we've been doing this for, I guess, a couple of months now. And my perception on some of these teams as I do more research does change. And really, Arizona and Kansas and Kansas State, to me, are all kind of very close together, all about the same. But I guess at the time when I was starting this out, I was a little bit higher on Arizona. That's why Arizona's in the yellow. Kansas State and Kansas are in the white. Really, I think all of those games should be in the same spot, though. They should all be 50-50 games, or they should all be in the yellow. I would probably put them all in the yellow, which it actually is not enough to change the projection, but or it would change the decimal, but it wouldn't change the number of wins. So however you want to look at that, if you bump Arizona as a 50-50 game, put those games in the yellow, it doesn't really matter. Oklahoma State is, so I have Oklahoma State in a tier above BYU. and I have Oklahoma State in the same tier as Kansas State, Arizona, Kansas, Utah. But Oklahoma State is actually in the top end of that tier, and so it's almost like there are tiers within the tiers. And so that's why Oklahoma State's in the yellow. I'm really high on the Cowboys. But yeah, UCF, you just go through these games. I think they're probably underdogs, definitely underdogs against Kansas State, probably underdogs against Baylor on the road, UCF on the road as well, underdogs against Kansas, possibly even underdogs against Arizona State on the road, and then Houston. Now, that might be a 50-50 game right there. I don't really know who I'd favor. Probably Houston. I've done some research on this Houston team, and I think they're actually going to be pretty good. So you're talking about potentially only being favored in 2 games all year long. So it could be a rough season for BYU, but the odds would say, the averages would say that they're going to win about half of these games, and they're going to get to 6-6. So that is the projection. You split these games in the white, you win one of these games in the yellow, you win the game against Southern Illinois and Wyoming, and you can find your way to 6-6. But 5-7, I think, might be a more realistic projection if I was just going to project this. But with our formula, again, BYU projected to go 6-6. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below.